Hello and welcome. The Modi government has announced that from the 1st of May, all Indian citizens above the age of 18 will be eligible to be vaccinated. This is no longer restricted to those above 45. This is universal vaccination. The biggest question in your mind at this time, I'm certain, is Mera number kab aayega? If the government is allowing universalization of vaccination, is there enough vaccine supply in the country for you to get vaccinated if you're below the age of 45? For perspective on this, we want to go across live and exclusive to Pune at this time. We've got Adar Poonawalla, Chief Executive Officer of the Serum Institute, joining us. Mr. Poonawalla, welcome to the India Today Network. Can you begin and explain to our viewers who are listening very carefully to every word you utter about your company's plans to ensure that from the 1st of May, when universal vaccination has been permitted, they will be able to access your vaccine or whichever vaccine they're able to get hold of? What changes for you? How are you approaching the 1st of May, Mr. Poonawalla?
So thanks to the change of the government policy now, 50% of our capacities can be sold to state governments and to private hospitals. Now, with limited supply and our obligations that we have to continue giving to the central government, there will be initially very limited supplies. However, it is a welcome move because of the opening of this market. You know, as you said, people can access this in a way that they could not access it earlier. And of course, the age group has come down to the age of 18 that can be vaccinated. So this is what is happening. And you will see in the month of May itself, in the middle to end of May, where you will see these doses being sent out, you know, to private hospitals and to the state governments. So that's where we are at the moment.
So the question, of course, is what will the price of these vaccines be? You'd earlier mentioned 1,000 rupees. Your company's put out a press release saying in private hospitals it will be 600, state governments 400. Can you explain the rationale of your pricing decision?
Yes. So we have also disclosed a table and a chart of what global vaccine prices are at, which is, you know, usually more than $10 or $20, which is upwards of 700-800 rupees, and some going into 2,000 to 3,000 rupees per dose. Now, we have chosen not to make, you know, or take advantage of the situation by charging 1,000 rupee price, which is what I originally hoped I would do. That is something we could look at after 6 months or 7 months when the pandemic is sort of easing down, when we sell in the private market. Right now, we're selling to the state governments and private hospitals, which we feel we need to in our philanthropic nature, which we've always believed in giving affordable healthcare products, that we substantially bring it down, you know, from 1,000 rupees to 400 rupees for state governments, and as you rightly said, 600 rupees for private hospitals. So that is why we have done that as a gesture to support the people so that everyone can afford these products.
Could you explain your cost structures, please? Because for many people, the one question in their mind will be, are pharma companies such as yours using this opportunity of a pandemic to make money, or are you doing this something at a purely cost plus basis? So if you're selling it, for example, to private hospitals for 600 rupees, how much does the Serum Institute make out of that?
So 50% of everything that the Serum Institute makes has to go back as a royalty to AstraZeneca. So actually, we only get 50% of the revenue that is being made. And so that is the rationale of the pricing also. And of course, if we have pegged this product, if you look at our other vaccines, vaccine that we make against pneumonia, that is priced at 1,000 rupees. So we have clearly demonstrated in all our price points with the governments, with the private hospitals, that we are not taking advantage of the pandemic. We are in fact providing Covishield at a far lower price than our existing vaccines like Pneumocil, which we launched, as you know, in 2019, which is a 3-dose vaccine for children. So in fact, that is far higher in the price compared to Covishield, just to make an example.
Now, there have been reports in the media a few days ago that AstraZeneca in the United Kingdom has sent a legal notice to Serum Institute saying because you aren't exporting, which was part of your agreement under which you got this IPR from the AstraZeneca company, there's a possibility that you will not be able to manufacture Covishield in India. Now, given how important Covishield is in India's current vaccination plans, how serious a threat is this? How are you hoping to deal with this situation?
Well, I don't know how much I can speak about that. All I can say, I'm going off to the UK tonight to settle this issue and manage multiple other contractual obligations that we have not been able to fulfill due to prioritizing our own country first. And I have no regrets on that. We have to prioritize our country over the next few months. And I will be explaining this to different leaders and contractual partners that I have scheduled to meet in the UK this week. So I'm off to the UK tonight to do that. I can't disclose exactly what settlements we will have to reach on that matter, but that's the intention of now that things are moving smoothly in India. The next challenge I have is to go to the UK and sort out all this so that we don't have a situation on our hands that we might regret. So I'm in the process of doing that at the moment.
Have leaders of various state governments been in touch with you after the government's announcement? Have private hospitals been in touch with you? I'm assuming that they would have been. What are you telling them, Mr. Poonawalla, post the 1st of May? How much manufacturing capacity do you have for people under the age of 45 to be vaccinated? Because from the last time you spoke to us, you said you were producing 60 million doses a month. You hope to scale that up to 100 million. Can you give us specifics about how much are you selling to the government as per your current contracts every month, and how much will you be able to sell to state governments and to private hospitals?
So as I said, we've been directed by the government as per the new policy to have a 50-50 split. And we will try to ensure that, but we first still have to complete our obligations to the central government. So as we do that and we have a balance, I would guesstimate around 2 to 2.5 crores doses per month can be sold in the private market and the state purchases, as I mentioned. So, maybe up to 3 crore doses a month. And as we scale up on a monthly basis, that can increase. We'll let you know, in a month or two where we are on the scale up. We know for sure that from July onwards, we're going to be producing more than 10 crore a month. That's for certain. We're trying to increase from 6 crore a month between now and July. We'll let you know how that progresses. And that's where we are at the moment. And what I'm telling them, to answer your question, is that yes, every state, every chief minister and every sort of private hospital group has reached out to us over the last few days. And we're just asking them to be patient and slowly trying to supply a little bit to everybody. But of course, don't forget, we have to take care of Maharashtra first. Don't forget, that is our state. And it is also the state which is perhaps the worst hit with the coronavirus cases. So whilst we prioritize Maharashtra, we will have very few doses to give to other states and other private hospitals outside of Maharashtra. And, we will give a disclosure on that after things are sort of settled and the dust settles. In the next few weeks, we'll have more transparency on what kind of doses will go outside of Maharashtra, and what will be given in Maharashtra as well.
But is that fair, Mr. Poonawalla? I know you're based in Pune, your family spends a lot of time in Mumbai, and there have been local politicians who've been at your factory premises creating all kinds of ruckus, threatening to attack the premises. All this may be true, but is it fair to hold back supplies? Because what if I'm a viewer in Delhi or in Kolkata or in Assam or in Tamil Nadu, and you're the only one manufacturing in the maximum capacity at this present? This regionalism, first we heard of vaccine nationalism, now you're suggesting vaccine regionalism. How fair is that to the rest of the country? How do you justify that, sir?
See, I agree with you there. I'm only going by the sort of demands and pressures that I have to also deal with. To be honest, it is based on the necessity and the need at the moment. I know that there was this debate about, when things open up, how does one prioritize? One prioritizes by supplying vaccines to where, the cases are, or the population density of where the disease is spreading the most, being one area, because that's where we feel, the health experts and others feel you'll save the maximum amount of lives. Of course, having said that, if with a magic wand I could give everybody at the same time, I would. So there has to be some level of prioritization. So if we looked at the whole globe for a moment, if we rewind back to January, first everybody in the world said they deserve the vaccine, which was absolutely right. Then we said, well, India deserves it because India is manufacturing it, and there are a lot of cases surging in India. So then we prioritized India. Then if you go back, it's sort of then coming backward down to Maharashtra. Now, having said that, I'm not saying we are only going to give Maharashtra. We have had talks with the Chief Minister in Delhi also. We're going to give him some doses. What I meant to say is that, yes, initially for the first month or two, the bulk of the supplies will have to go to Maharashtra, because that is the request put in, and that is also the need of the hour. So as I said, we'll slowly fan that out, and in the next month or 2 months, you'll see even more doses going out to other states. And we're not saying we're going to give 0 doses to the other states. I'm just saying there's going to be having to be a little priority. In fact, if there are certain other states which sees a lot of outbreaks, we may give a little more doses to those states, again on a need basis, to save lives. That's the priority that we're putting.
So from what I've understood, what you're saying, Mr. Poonawalla, is that for the month of May and June, you foresee an excess capacity of about 3 crore doses beyond what you're committed to giving to the central government. These 3 crore doses will be split in some ratio between the state governments and the private hospitals that have approached you at the price of 400 and 600 rupees a dose. Is that correct?
So let me just add and clarify. We have a finite quantity of 6 to 6.5 crore doses that we're making on a monthly basis. Now that there is no exports at the moment, we're giving half of that supply, to the central government, and half is being, as per the new policy, available here. So you are going to see a certain amount of doses come from the central government to all these other states as well, in parallel to what we are supplying to these states. So it's not over and above the 6 crore doses, because the finite pie that we have today is around 6 to 6.5 crore doses, which, as I said, we're scaling up on a monthly basis. And by the time we hit July, we're going to be crossing 10 crore doses per month.
And the government has cleared a credit of 3,000 crore rupees to enable Serum Institute to ramp up manufacturing. Have you received that money? How do you intend to use it? Does it help you scale up faster than originally planned?
No. So you will hear from the government officially finally what they give us. It is not going to be 3,000 crores. It will be less based on certain calculations we have done. Because I don't want to burden the government's exchequer and the taxpayers' money more than I absolutely have to. And so we have reworked some things to reduce that figure substantially, because now with this new policy that is there, that was announced subsequently to our discussions, with the opening up of the private market, we don't need to take the full 3,000 crores. It will be substantially less, and I won't announce how much that is. But I will leave it for the government officials to make that announcement when they actually give us that funding. And to answer the second part of your question, we will use all of it only directly for the raw materials and working capital requirements as an advance for the doses that they're going to procure from us over the next 3 months. So I would wait for them to announce that. It would not be proper for me to speak on that.
Let's spend a moment about US export controls. You'd put out a tweet to the President of the United States. We know that materials that have been flagged by you, like plastic bags, filters, cell culture media, are in short supply. What's been the response that you've received after you put out your public appeal to the American president? What are the specific raw materials that you're short of? How are you dealing with that situation? To what extent is it impacting your production?
So, as I'd said, luckily for Covishield, it doesn't have much of an impact. But for Covovax, which is our next candidate, we want to stockpile and scale up. In fact, from this month, we are facing a lot of shortages. Through the media, I think the US administration and President Biden has replied and sort of responded saying that we understand it, we acknowledge it, and the diplomatic channels between India and the US are working out what can be done. So far, there's been no relief on that. But at least the good news is that the US government has responded very positively to say that they are looking at it. And, I will leave it for the diplomatic channels between the two countries to resolve it on both sides. And maybe in a month or so, they can ease certain raw materials to come. But again, the importance of this is we need it now. We don't need it after 3 or 4 months once we've made arrangements with other suppliers who are going to supply this to us. It's only for a temporary period that we need it now for the next 3 months to make a large stockpile of Covovax and other US-based vaccines. I know that Johnson & Johnson also needs these raw materials. We have other vaccine manufacturers in India trying to make the Johnson & Johnson product. They will also face shortages, and they've made this also very vocal, that they've been vocal about this, that they also need these raw materials. So I hope the US changes their stand on it and eases the restrictions soon.
By when do you hope to sell in the Indian market your second vaccine candidate, the Covovax? What's the status at present? By when do you hope to take it out to the people?
I had always said September, but now with the relaxation of the clinical trials not being made mandatory, we may look at revising an earlier timeline for that product. But, until I finish some basic testing and some preliminary data from my trials that have already begun, I would not be comfortable launching this product in India or anywhere in the world till I've completed a certain stage of my clinical study, just based on the ethical stands and the quality norms that we have. And I think that is still about 3 months away from today. But the good news is that we will be stockpiling the product until then. So in 3 months, when we have those results, we'll have a large stock to just immediately supply away to the country.
Now, you have a very big team of scientists at the Serum Institute, and you're looking carefully at the efficacy of the product that you're delivering to the people of India. There have been multiple reports, which I'm sure have come to you as well, of people who've had both doses and a month passed after the dose getting reinfected. Earlier you said it's like a bulletproof jacket. It doesn't prevent the infection, it ensures you don't end up in hospital. My question now is, what are your scientists telling you about the mutation, especially this Indian double mutation, and the impact it has on your virus? Is there something about this current mutation that India is dealing with which makes it escape the antibodies that have been created by Covishield?
So we're still waiting to get more data on how that would work. But so far, I can only share the facts. The facts are that we have seen enough of this so-called double mutant, which is now very visible in India as well and spreading fast. And we have seen enough cases of this double mutant. So what I mean to say is that if you look at the fact that around 8 to 10 crore doses have already been given of Covishield to Indians in India, how many of those people, we would really have to see, have been hospitalized with the double mutant disease? And that's where we will get to see how effective Covishield is against the double mutant versus the original strains of the virus, the Wuhan strain and UK strain or whatever. So as we see that in India, I'm sure your team also will be able to get the cases out where you can see very clearly, and this is what the good news and the silver lining is, I at least have not seen more than 2 or 3% of anyone who's got Covishield having to be hospitalized with the new strains. In total, I think we're still less than 10% of people who have received Covishield have had to be hospitalized. So we're seeing a 90% efficacy of Covishield against all strains so far in India. So that is the total data at the moment, and you can have this verified. That, in short, I again summarize that 90% of people, or rather more than 90% of people who have taken Covishield, have not had to set foot into a hospital, having to take oxygen or any serious treatment, ventilators, etc. So that is the silver lining at the moment. Of course, we'll have to wait and see how this disease progresses and further changes. But this is at least visible data that we're getting from hospitals at the moment with Covishield. And please, do double check on that and, tell everyone and your audiences the results.
But in a very common man's parlance, is this a shifting of the goalpost? Because when you came out first and others spoke, the understanding was, and maybe it is the way people processed what you said, that the vaccine, once you've got the vaccine, you're safe. Now the understanding seems to be that once you've got the vaccine, you are safe only from hospitalization. You're not necessarily safe from getting the infection, even if you've had both your doses and a month has lapsed.
Yeah, so I mean, none of the vaccines, Pfizer, Moderna, all these vaccines globally that we've seen licensed today, they don't prevent the infection. They just prevent hospitalization up to a certain level. And all I'm saying is that we're seeing in India that Covishield is protecting more than 90% against hospitalizations. And look, let me tell you, the whole intention of the vaccine was to prevent death and save lives and de-burden the congestion at the hospitals and on the healthcare system. And that is what is happening. So that is the success story of these vaccines. And I mean, look, no drugs, even if you get a flu tomorrow, for example, you take an antibiotic, you take any other drugs, it doesn't resolve the situation 100% immediately. It takes some time. Some drugs even don't work. Let's look at the efficacy of remdesivir or favipiravir or any of these drugs. So there is no 100% solution today for this terrible disease. What we're able to do is reduce the burden on the hospitals, which is a major issue and shortage of beds. What we're able to see with the vaccine is that your life is out of danger. And, that's the success story so far. And that is a major win as far as vaccines are concerned. In fact, I didn't even know if this was going to be possible if you asked me this question 3 or 4 months ago. But now, with 8-9 crore doses being administered to Indians here in front of our eyes in India with Covishield, that is very visible, and that indeed is good news. That is exactly why we need to ramp up as soon as possible all vaccines so that we can reduce the burden on hospitals, reduce the burden on oxygen supply, and all of this situation.
What is the latest update that you've got from your scientists about incidence of blood clotting after somebody got a AstraZeneca Covishield vaccine? In Europe, it became a big issue. In other countries, because of the fear of blood clotting, the AstraZeneca vaccine was put on hold. In India, so far, Mr. Poonawalla, how many such blood clotting incidents have been reported back to you?
I don't think it's exceeded more than 1 or 2 in a million, if that. And I'd have to check the figures. I don't think it's even that much, which basically means you're 10 times as likely to die or have a fatal incident with a car accident, and probably 20 times the incidence of getting COVID yourself and having a serious issue. So the benefits here clearly outweigh the risks by a factor of 10 or 20 times. So if you look at car accidents, getting COVID itself and dying or being hospitalized, the blood clots is 1/10 as likely and serious compared to that. And look, all the vaccines have got this issue of rare blood clots, which happen in a given population size. So we've taken per million, whether it's Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca, the other vaccines, which I won't mention, they all have, this incidence. And it's a common phenomena, far less in all cases, and all the vaccines are safe as far as the blood clotting thing is done. And all the regulators have statistically analyze the data, link the data, and come out with these statistics, which now all these reports are available for anyone to read and with full transparency and debate upon.
Now, the Pfizer CEO was quoted in the American media recently as having said that they're working on a third booster dose, which may be required a few months later to take care of the new strains and to ensure continuing immunity. Do you know how long does the antibody built by the Covishield last? Do we know whether we'll need a third dose? Are you working on an updated version of your Covishield vaccine given the strains that we are seeing?
I think, we are working on an updated version of the vaccine, certainly, and we're also working on giving the vaccine to a lower age group, below the age of 18. We're working on that. We'll get some news and data in a few months on that. Regards to the first part of your question, I think we still need to wait another few months before we can answer that, because we are seeing excellent results and protection up to 8 months with Covishield. So if we see that there's a substantial drop after that, we may look at recommending a third booster dose. But at the moment, we don't see the need for that. And we're trying to keep it just as a 2-dose regime. Let's wait and see what happens. At the moment, 2 doses looks to be enough. But after a year, we may need to introduce a third dose as a booster. The good news is AstraZeneca could also be combined as a second or third dose with other vaccines, and trials for that is on. We heard some reports about Sputnik. Once that data is available, we can formally announce that yes, the 2 vaccines can be combined. That'll be a major help to India as well, because 1 dose of Sputnik and 1 dose of AZ and Covishield is compatible. But I don't want to make that statement till the regulators have approved that. These are all the sort of synergies that we see with all the different vaccines coming about. So, we will see a little bit of relaxation and positivity.
Now, how will this work? Because just it's interesting. It's interesting that you mentioned this, because one of Delhi's top doctors was talking to me this morning, and the point that he made is that because Covishield is a spike protein vaccine, getting a second dose of a whole virus vaccine may actually ensure better immunity. Are you also now veering around to the view that this cocktail of 1 Covishield followed by a second, whether it is a Sputnik or it is a Bharat Biotech vaccine, may actually prove to be more useful because it kind of helps you build immunity to both circumstances, not just the spike protein, but also as a whole inactivated virus?
Yeah, I don't know whether it'll be improving the status quo. I hope it does. That'll be great. But it'll certainly make things easier based on shortages and availability of different vaccines, including Covishield, that it becomes compatible with other vaccines. So that'll open up things far more than they are today. Because today, sometimes in certain hospitals or states, we are seeing a shortage of Covishield or another vaccine like Covaxin or Sputnik or whatever when it comes. It'll definitely improve the flexibility for a patient to go in there and get different vaccines for their second dose or even third dose. But look, till the trials are done to combine these vaccines, I don't want to make any irresponsible statements to say that that is possible today. We have to wait, let the regulators decide this and announce this. But I'm just saying this is what we can look forward to in the coming months, in the short term, with what I'm hearing from the scientific community.
And finally, what do you have to say to Bill Gates, Melinda Gates, the Gavi Foundation, everybody else internationally who had high hopes of getting doses from India, getting doses from the Serum Institute, which was part of your contract, which now, because of the acute demand for the vaccines in India, is not possible. You're being sued by many countries. People are upset. So how are you dealing with that, and what do you have to say?
Nothing. I'll let you know when I come back from the UK how it goes. But, the bottom line is that they all have to understand, and they are understanding. We've been very supportive, everybody, that they know and understand our needs in India. And they're hopeful that in the next after the next 2 or 3 months, slowly some exports can resume. And, eventually India will resume exports. It's just a matter of when. It's a matter of when we can get ahead of the pandemic and reduce the cases here in India. And then we look forward to some exports after a few months. So we all have to be patient. There's nothing beyond that we can do or explain to anybody.
And are you in touch with colleagues at Moderna, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson? They haven't put out clear statements yet. Do you know when these international vaccines will be available in India from, Mr. Poonawalla?
I think now that the government has opened up on the pricing and private market sales, certainly all these other companies you mentioned, I'm sure would probably find India a very good market to partake in. And yes, hopefully, I don't know these companies, I don't deal with them, but I'm sure that they will probably reapply based on the fact that they don't need to do clinical trials, number one, and number two, there is scope to sell at a higher price than the original 150 rupees that was being sold with the government. So I think these companies will very soon provide their products to India, which is a great, great thing. And thanks to the Modi ji's decision on opening all this up, we will see new vaccines and options being available to consumers in India very soon.
Okay, I'm going to leave it over there. We'll track your trip to the United Kingdom closely. Let's see how you're able to deal with this issue of AstraZeneca wanting to suspend production of the Covishield in India on account of the inability to export. Thank you very much for your time and wish you all the best. This is Adar Poonawalla.